Hi, everybody. Griffin Cooper here at Able Way Tech. It is April 7th, 2025, and I wanted to do a mini master class on some of the Kata challenge pattern uses, which aren't just about entries and exits. We can also use these patterns for assessing market conditions, as well as establishing upside and downside targets. And to start off here, I just want to say that the guiding principle we use for all this is a guiding principle of technical analysis that the market action discounts everything, meaning that all that's known is in the price. We're not going to be looking at fundamentals or news or anything like that. We're all just looking at the story on the chart. And this is really where Dr. Ken Long's concept of standard work becomes really important. And I think that's because whether our outlook is correct or not, it gives us a sense of agency when we're operating inside an established framework. And what that agency then builds is resilience. And what that does then is it really helps us to calm down and make rational decisions by having the standard process that we use. And this will be an application of the fractal nature of the Kata challenge patterns, meaning they work just as well on monthly and weekly time frames as we'll see as on a intraday 3-minute chart. And really what's nice about these patterns, not only the fractal nature, but they adjust after each leg to what is actually happening. Each move, it adjusts itself to what the new pattern is, much like an Elliott wave principle. And so let's start with the monthly chart. And we'll start with the monthly chart because particularly depending on the size of the moves, the bigger moves, it's better to get a context, right, and zoom out a little bit to understand more what's going on. And I think one of the most interesting things on this chart is that here is 2020, and you can see how after COVID we had really a lot more volatility. The market's been moving a lot more uh, after the COVID crash. We've had a leg up, pullback, and then another leg up. And so if you look at it in this context, price has crossed the PSAR, come all the way down here. The RL10 is crossing the dragon. It hasn't even flipped the PSAR yet, though. But to look at a downside pullback, I would say here, this is an important going to be this was a resistance level that could become support here, as well as then in this little pocket down here would be the next place. After that, I'd look for some support. But overall, we can see on the monthly chart up, pullback hasn't even flipped the PSAR yet, has crossed PSARs in the dragon. So that's something to be aware of. So now we're drilling down to the weekly chart. And what I want to note on the weekly chart is, well, I did a video recently about this. You can see this double top where the price came up twice and was rejected. And that was an important reversal level, which then hit a downside target. And so on the weekly level, we get a little bit more detail. We can see that here, I think this would have been, this is an important place where there can be some support on this little turnaround here, but even more so where the PSAR last flip down here is going to be another support level, which price has almost gotten to there already. So this could be something. And then the next one down would be down here at this RL10 swing high and this little pocket here. So we've seen on the weekly now we have had a flip, and look how far away you can see the strength of this move, the speed of it. Price is way down here and the PSAR is way up here. So you can see this is a big move, and often what happens after those kinds of moves is what? Is a pullback, right? So we wouldn't be surprised if we saw some kind of pullback. Okay, now let's switch to the daily to get even more detailed. And the daily is where you see here the green and red dots. We take the Kata challenge patterns, which really helps us get an idea of market condition, because once you're in a trade, whether you're just doing it in a demo count or not, you really start to get a pulse for if the trade is working or not. And so we had this leg down, which created an SSC pattern. And as soon as that started failing right away, that's usually a sign of a CD coming up. And sure enough, price broke through our entry level for the CD and is now well down here. And this yellow box is basically just a copy and paste to project a downside target. We had this move down here, this first leg. We played the SSC, and then when that fails, you could project the target. I basically just take the size of this leg and project it down to here. You could You could start that here on the pullback, but because CDs are so strong usually, the second leg down is often as big, if not bigger than the first leg down. So I actually just projected it from that RL10 swing low and said price could easily get down to here around the 490 level. I think would not be surprising. And here is kind of just a bonus chart because to start to just introduce the idea of using a multi-lens approach, we're not just looking at the Kata challenge patterns, but looking at other other ways of viewing the markets and the charts, I think could be really useful. So to go back to our monthly bar chart. This is actually on a logarithmic scale, and I think that's very good for drawing trend lines. We can see this is a very valid confirmed trend line, and it's just now starting to pull back close to that established trend line. So it wouldn't be surprising to find support at that level. So just a demonstration there of how I think this looks completely different than the monthly Kata challenge chart. And so it's good to kind of look at the things from different angles to get a better perspective. And so really what I'm trying to demonstrate here is this idea of learning to trust our own charts and our own skills at reading those charts. I think it's a relief not to listen to the talking heads on the news. We can, of course, listen to the band talking heads. I would suggest that, but not having to listen to, what all the pundits and CNBC are saying to, to freak us out, and that we can then, we can draw our own conclusions. Well, I hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching.